It's the weekly wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. And that was my favorite part of the show, wherein Tim reveals what's in his background. And I'm going to a naked Jim Jordan wrestling with the Republican conference right now. Is that right, Tim? Am I right?
Well, you know what? If I had a picture of that, I would have put that up.
Let's see. Hospital. Okay. Is this the one the Israelis bombed, or?
It's no. I'm just sitting here at a hospital parking lot, wondering if they're going to hit this one next.
Oh, exactly. There you go. And by they,
it wasn't even the hospital.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, here, the funny thing, call me. I'm the kind of guy who always looks at the glass as 10% full as opposed to 90% empty. Ilhan Omar actually tried to backtrack on this. While not all Palestinian Nazis are the same. Okay, so Rashid Tlaib, or whatever her name is, she's sticking with the story. She's sticking with the party line. She's quadrupling down on this. But Omar tried to back off a little bit. Which, it's more than I can say. Like, I read a Tribune story because I like to localize this. Everybody was like keying on the New York Times headline, I was a newspaper guy for a while. I know how you qualify things, and you throw an alleged in there just to make sure, and then you print all these libelous things. But they had 500 die in Israeli bomb kills 500 at the hospital, Palestinians say. And of course, nobody reads the Palestinians say part. And then, of course, you get where the evidence was. And this is what's great about social media now, and the fact that we can, zoom in and do a podcast and you get instant reaction. I mean, within minutes, the evidence was already piling up that this was a bunch of garbage. And in the old media, which is trying to adapt and is online, couldn't do this. Now, this was a great post on our screen by T. Beckett Adams. I loved it. He said the munitions experts have logged on, and I wanted to just have a little contest with you. My favorite, Abby Martin, of the 4 munitions experts, she's the hottest one. Wouldn't you agree, of the 4? Now, what she said was, no Palestinian rocket can cause the carnage and mass death that we saw in that hospital. But the problem is this is like the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, according to the old joke. But this wasn't Israeli, and it didn't hit the hospital, as you say. It actually hit the parking lot, and the carnage wasn't what it was. So, oops.
Well, it was actually kind of funny, because they would say, look at this hospital, and you would just see this empty lot.
Right.
It's like, wow, everyone assumed that it was leveled.
Yeah, Tim, I wanted you to look at the pictures of all these munitions experts. Kim Iverson right here. We just had that Ashley Martin before, and there was another one, and there's a couple of others. Mohammed. Well, I don't find him.
He's pretty hot, but
that's pretty hot. But
it's just. But that observation might get me tossed off a building. So
yeah, there you go. No, not my style. But I say Ashley Martin was the hottest of the munitions experts, better than Karen Attiah. No.
Yeah.
But
if that is her picture,
right? But Abby Martin, I got to say, hottest munitions expert. So who cares what she has to say? But I've really enjoyed, the people who have turned or whatever and are on the side of the Israelis. I mean, for example, like Sarah Silverman, the comedian, and I always, kind of liked her. Do you like her work as a comedian, Sarah?
She has amused me in the past.
Yeah. I kind of like it, but I knew she was a leftist, and I couldn't stand all those opinions. Well, her fellow travelers have turned on her, because apparently, if you could believe her latest tweets, she can't believe that her fellow leftists are countenancing this carnage in Israel.
Well, we've been saying it for a while that the true home of anti-Semitism is on the left.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, yeah. There's quite a bit of it. Um, so forgive me for like a twist on Mike Tyson here. I would say that everyone's a liberal till you get a punch in the mouth, and that's Sarah Silverman. You know who I really have been enjoying is Fetterman. I mean, we've lampooned him, over and over and over again, but he's standing there in the halls of Congress and not wearing a suit and basically saying, "No, I mean, Israel's got to destroy Hamas," and he's taking flack for it. So,
is Fetterman Jewish?
I
I never thought so, but
he must. You know what? I haven't even thought of it. He must
now
be.
Now that I think about it, that name
Yeah.
is kind of
No, yeah, Fetterman is a Jewish name, but I mean the governor Shapiro is a Jewish name too. But anyway, it's fun to see that. And it's that's good. That's good. Now, as we're taping this, Biden was going to be speaking tonight, and I assume as long as he can get through the speech, because I mean, I couldn't go to Israel back and forth, make a speech, whatever. I just want to, sit and do the New York Times crossword puzzle.
On that plane, it's got a king size 4-poster bed in there.
Sure, you don't even know you're flying, but he's he was going to speak, and I'm sure he's going to be foursquare in favor of Israel, and they're going to greenlight this invasion, which better have happened by the time anybody sees this, because what are you waiting for now? I'm not sure that.
Do you think he's going to greenlight the invasion? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah,
no?
You don't think so? Why? I mean, by the time people see this,
yeah, we'll know who's right.
Yeah, but why would you think Why would you think he wouldn't greenlight the invasion?
Because he's Biden. It's they believe. I mean, his administration. Those people believe that they're so intelligent and they're so rational and they're so respected by governments around the world that they're able to, they're able to control what goes on.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think they want Gaza leveled. I think they're still sold on the 2-state solution. I mean, come on. He said, well, it appears that rocket came from their own team.
Well, I love when he says their own team. Like they're bad boys, like the Oakland Raiders. Yeah, that was trivializing what they did a little bit, but you could expect that from Biden. Look,
then he goes on. Then he goes on and says, Hamas does not represent Palestinians. Yeah. They were elected. B, recent polling still shows 68% support. No, I'm sorry. Hamas literally represents.
It reminds me of what the Jews in Russia used to say: if only the Tsar knew. He would take care of us. No, the Tsar didn't care about you. So
there's more support for Hamas in Israel than there is support for Biden in the United States.
Well, I mean, and the thing is that there may be more support for Hamas in Israel, but everybody else, the Arabs don't like Hamas. They don't like them, and they don't like the Palestinians either, and they don't want any part of them.
Yeah, the Taliban don't like Hamas. Yeah, right, what does that tell you?
So, no, I can't blame you for thinking this. Considering that we've bankrolled this whole thing, the $6 billion in assets. In payment, excuse me, for the hostages.
100 million to Palestine for what? To rebuild their water infrastructure?
Well, as I may have mentioned, I think I mentioned it to you. I'd rather him give the 100 million to Hunter. So at least he should get a cut of it.
Yeah, because he'd only use the pipes to make crack.
Right.
Better than bombs, I guess. Wouldn't be turning them into rockets.
Yeah. So I just, but I think, and I can understand it, everything they did, because, they thought their hubris led them to think that they could make Iran a sane and rational, somehow partner in the Middle East with creative tension with the Saudis and all that. But they, forgot the little part of the one side of the Rubik's Cube, at least one side, which, they fund terrorism. They're all about terrorism. And I mean, it's a nutso thing. And See, but here's the thing. I think like Biden gives Ukraine just enough money to keep it going so that there's a lot more bloodshed, but won't give enough, the F-16s or whatever material to defeat the Russians. So, yeah, it'll probably green light it, but for how long? That's right. It could be minutes or days. I mean, think about this. You got a situation. Look at all the protests worldwide about something that the Israelis didn't do. Imagine when they actually start doing something, and there really are casualties. Like I said, I read the Tribune story. I don't even know I subscribe to that. It's just a bad habit. But I mean, they did say, oh, Israel says one thing, Hamas says another. But then they were talking about thousands in demonstrating in Chicago, and quotes from the Hamas sympathizers, and not once did they mention the mountain of details. As somebody that showed that that this wasn't Israel, it was somebody tweeted. There's video, there's ELINT evidence. Sounds like electric something or other. Geolocation evidence. ELINT evidence. Geolocation evidence. Aftermath photos in daylight. Audio recordings and independent Pentagon confirmation. As this person says, we're past the point of healthy skepticism. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely nuts. So,
and too late. And too late. I mean, that's a bad habit that especially American media have.
Well,
is that they come out and they say, this black man had his hands in the air, was just gunned down by police, and then the riots start, and then they go, oh well, no, he was actually struggling trying to get the cops gunned.
And that's on page 824, as opposed
right, and
to
people never hear it, and the riots, it's too late because the riots have already started.
Right. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
This is one of the last pictures taken of Wadia Al-Fayumi, who just a couple of weeks ago celebrated his 6th birthday. His life was brutally taken away yesterday morning at his home in unincorporated Plainfield after he was stabbed 26 times with a military-style knife. Will County investigators saying today he and his mother were attacked by their landlord, Joseph Chuba. The 71-year-old is now charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and 2 counts of committing a hate crime.
What we have is a murdered Palestinian child by someone who is radicalized by the environment in which we live right now that casts Palestinians as human animals.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. So, I mean, this was terrible that the 6-year-old kid gets killed, but the headlines said the Plainfield murder of a 6-year-old Palestinian boy was blamed on talk radio.
Sure.
Conservative talk radio.
Any opportunity.
Yeah. And
did you get a glimpse of that mugshot of that guy?
Oh, he looked.
I thought it was
like you. I thought I
thought it was Nick Nolte at first.
Oh, okay, right. One of the worst mugshots ever. So yeah, my former partner Dan Proft, took offense at that, and I tweeted back to Dan. I just said, I don't think AM 560 actually reaches Plainfield, so you don't have to worry about that. But anyway, yeah, I mean it's horrible. It's horrible. But yeah, the blame conservative talk radio. I got to tell you something. I mean, it depends what you mean by conservative talk radio, because apparently Charlie Kirk, I think he has a show on WIND, and he is fabulously wealthy, and he's about 29 years old. And I think he's been on the side of Israel on this one. And that's not Charlie Kirk. That's Nick Nolte, not the Plainfield guy. But he actually sent this out last week saying that he thought, and I thought you had a tinfoil hat. He said that Netanyahu had allowed the attack on purpose in order to distract. It was a wag the dog thing. Sure. And and if he did, all anybody could say is really bad mistake by Netanyahu, because he's toast. I don't know if you saw.
Well, I think what Charlie Kirk said was that Israeli intelligence withheld the information, and not as a wag the dog, but as a way to embarrass Netanyahu, much the way that Nancy Pelosi and the DC police turned down the offer of the National Guard before the January 6th riots.
I would have to see exactly what he said again. I thought he just said that Netanyahu was responsible for this. But in any event, I mean, it would have been stupid of Netanyahu to do. And he looks like, according to John Podhoretz, who saw this the other day, and see when he's standing next to Biden, he looks like a totally defeated man. And he is defeated. I mean, his last best effort will be to somehow rescue Israel here. And there's supposedly a debate within the war cabinet. I think it's a triumvirate in the war cabinet as to whether they should have a 1 or 2 front war. Should it just be in the south with Gaza, or should you also include Hezbollah? And of course, listen to me sounding like I know something about all this stuff that I've been studying for like about the last 5 minutes. But in any event, so we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, back to more local things. There was a tweet from this guy, Ed Krasenstein, who comes up on my feed all the time, that apparently the murder rate in the country dropped. And the conclusion, the post hoc ergo propter schlock conclusion from this guy was, well, the Biden policies are working in the United States. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. It's Brian Krasenstein. He says Republicans constantly claim that Biden's America is more violent and crime is out of control, but murders dropped 6% in 2022. I'm wondering if, and I haven't really dug into the details of this, but it sounds eerily familiar to talk about inflation, about how inflation is no problem anymore because look how much it's dropped from last year when it was so high. So
also with inflation, I mean, you've also got, like its gas prices, are up, even though, meat prices might be going down. So, right. I mean, it's kind of offset. So it's, I would imagine if murder rate is down nationwide, Chicago must be really going up.
So, yeah, look, all I know is the late poll I saw just like today, and they go from one day to the next, different depending on who you read. But Trump was leading Biden pretty well in the 7 flip-flop states. Even as Sidney Powell was pleading guilty to a to a charge in the Atlanta case, which, by the way, and here's this Ed Krasenstein, I think, and I didn't tell Chris about this tweet, which is why I don't trust this guy that much. He said, this could be a big deal that she pleaded guilty because now she'll flip on Trump. But as Andy McCarthy, who's actually an attorney who's dealt with this kind of stuff before, noted, she pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge, not the big RICO charge. And what prosecutors try to do is to get people to plead guilty to the biggest charge that they can convict them with. Otherwise, you're really signaling that you don't have that much of a case. And it seems like at this moment anyway, that the Atlanta prosecutor doesn't have that much. What's her name? Fannie Willis doesn't have that much of a case.
Fawny.
Fawny. Yeah, that's all she got on Sidney Powell. And
what was the misdemeanor?
Excuse me. The guilty plea in this case spells bad news for Trump. Also means we'll likely see more guilty pleas from Trump's co-defendants. But no, he doesn't really understand this, because he's not an expert on it. So I don't even trust his crime statistics either now, because Andy McCarthy says you didn't get her to plead guilty on anything having to do with RICO. It's a misdemeanor charge. It's really, relatively speaking, a rap on the knuckles. And, so much of this in all these cases has been hot air, with the exception of the Mar-a-Lago case, which is only based on the Espionage Act, which, of course, is arbitrarily and capriciously enforced. Witness what happened with Hillary Clinton. So it's a bunch of BS. It's what
was the misdemeanor that Sidney Powell pleading guilty
election tampering or whatever, but it was a misdemeanor. No big deal. Meanwhile, speaking of laws of the land, or back locally here, Alderman Lopez, who's like our favorite guest here on the show, you love him, Alderman Lopez in Chicago, wants an ordinance that because of after the latest street takeover on Lower Wacker, according to this Fox 32 News tweet, Alderman Lopez says it's time to hold parents responsibly. He wants parents to, I don't know, probably be fined if their kids do things. He may as well have an ordinance that says the parents should get married before they have children. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Alderman Lopez.
That's okay. We're gonna charge your dad. Well, good luck finding him.
Oh, sure, exactly. Then I love this. I love Twitter, and I don't know how much we're going to show of this or whatever, but there is a video on Twitter of how to survive falling through ice. And I could, spoiler alert, I mean, it shows the guy falling through some ice, and then he describes how you get out. You don't try and hoist yourself out. You don't flail.
Well, the first thing is to relax.
Okay. All right. Well, Tim, since you haven't seen this, why don't
you?
I
have seen it.
Oh, you have seen it. Okay.
I watched it.
Relax.
Yeah. The first thing he says, make sure you relax, because if you panic, you're going to gulp water and start to drown. You won't be able to inhale water. Is this the same as
quicksand? Is this the same as quicksand, or is this a different one? Because do I have to see a quicksand video as well?
Well, no, I think with quicksand, you want to try getting out right away. But he says he emphasized the need to relax before you start doing anything.
And what is the thing that you do wind up doing?
Is that you put your hands out in front of you and start kicking forward. And
start kicking. You start kicking. Forward. It's almost like you're swimming. And
it's like hopping out onto it's like a seal hopping onto an iceberg.
There you go.
And then he says, stay on your stomach. And then he says, stay on your stomach till you get to the shore, too. Don't try to stand up.
That's a great image. Maybe my second favorite image that I've ever thought of in my been notified of in my life. You know what my favorite image is? A marshmallow through a keyhole. And do you know what that describes? You know what marshmallow through a keyhole describes?
I know where my mind goes. I don't know.
I'll tell you, and your mind went to the right place. It's sex education, sophomore year high school, where the wrestling coach, not Jim Jordan, the wrestling coach said that if you didn't have an erection and you tried to have intercourse, that would be like trying to get a marshmallow through a keyhole. So he also said to us that a stiff Schwanstucker has no conscience. So I mean, I learned a lot sophomore year.
Wow.
High school. I mean, how many things do you remember from that your teachers told you 50 years ago or more?
Was your wrestling coach Dennis Hastert by any chance?
He was not. He actually, the wrestling coach was a great guy. He was a gruff guy, but he was very, very good. But I'm wondering now that, we've seen this video about how to get out of falling through ice. I'm hoping the next very helpful video, because I mean, the only person I can think of that this would have helped, the falling through ice video, was the late Blackhawks center, Pitt Martin, good old number 7, who I believe died while ice fishing, which is a little bit ironic because you'd think that a hockey player would know how to handle himself on ice, but something happened there. But I think the next thing that I think we need to see on Twitter would be like how to find clothing while you're dreaming about showing up to school in your underwear. Because when am I going to be on the ice? I don't think so. So in any event,
one thing I've learned with age, that if you start dreaming about looking for a washroom, you need to wake yourself up immediately.
Right. Or somebody has probably put your hand in as a stunt in a keg of beer or something like that. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
It's a guilty plea from the man who stole Judy Garland's famous ruby slippers. 76-year-old Terry Martin entered the plea today in a Duluth courtroom. The slippers were taken from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids back in 2005. It was a years-long mystery until the FBI recovered the slippers during a sting in 2018 after a man attempted to insure the shoes.
I think he's lived a fast and loose life, and I think he's okay with what's happening now.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Yeah, I like it when we get to talk about this stuff. The and I talked about this, I think, before. Yeah, that guy who stole the Wizard of Oz slippers. I wasn't so concerned about them being stolen by this guy. I was just wondering what they were doing in Minnesota. Toto, we're not in Mankato anymore. What? I don't understand.
The Garland family came from Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Not Grand Rapids, Michigan,
well,
but Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The Gump. Wasn't her name Gump?
Oh, Gump. Yeah.
The Gump family. That's where they came from. That's where they got into vaudeville. And yeah, so Grand Rapids still it's the birthplace of Judy Garland.
Okay.
That's why they're doing there.
All right.
It's how much time do you think he's going to get? It's you steal something from a witch. Sure. That guy who stole Pelosi's podium got 2 months.
I think the standard is like 6 weeks for each shoe. So and with time off, they'll probably give him the slippers.
The funny part is how they caught him. Did you catch that?
What? How did they catch him?
He tried to get them insured.
Oh my God. Oh, jeez. Okay.
I guess he forgot how he acquired them.
Hey, did you just tell a joke that I didn't get? Because Chris said, just put a message on the screen saying he liked your joke. I'm saying, wait, did I miss a joke here?
Absolutely.
What was the joke? Let's hear it again.
It's too late. It's too late. You can listen to the tape.
I won't bother watching the tape of this show.
Well, the listeners all got it. There's no sense in repeating.
Wait, I thought it was
funny that it went right over your head. What?
Didn't I? What? Let's rewind it right now. Let's because I miss a lot of stuff. What was the joke? Just give me.
I said if you steal something from a witch, you don't know how much time you're going to get. The guy who stole Pelosi's podium got 2 months.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. I'm fine. Yes, I get it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't know that you didn't get it, and you just went, okay. I'm not even gonna. I don't think I'm not even gonna acknowledge it. And
I don't think that was worth. I mean, it was a fine joke.
That's why I didn't want to go back.
It
was an aside.
I should have trusted you. I don't think it was necessarily worth. It's Chris's fault. We'll blame him for putting a note on the screen there, which distracted me. And I'm easily distracted. I'm thinking, those slippers. I mean, why don't they just put them in cement on the Hollywood Walk of Fame instead of handprint? I mean,
according to what I saw, there were actually 4 pair. There were 4 pair that Garland wore, and I don't know that there was a different pair for the witch, because or if that was even a witch that they took them off of, or it was just 2 stuffed socks from under the house. I don't know.
Multiple pairs of slippers here. Yeah, that's.
I guarantee there.
Yeah, of course.
There are millions of pairs of ruby slippers right now. They don't say Judy Garland on the inside. Which I don't know if you saw the picture of them. They actually still say Judy Garland, so that so wardrobe knew whose dressing room to put them in.
Are you going to tell me that there are actually like about 1,000 Honus Wagner vintage baseball cards out there when there's only supposed to be one, I guess?
No, hey, I'm saying that Judy Garland fans love to dress up for Halloween. That's all I'm saying.
Who doesn't?
And, and most of those shoes are size 11 and larger.
Speaking of witches in the house, we would be remiss if we didn't mention what was going on with the Speaker of the House race. Although by the time we're on, for all I know, they could be on the 18th ballot for Jim Jordan. When we were taping this, I just checked on Twitter. They were talking about the 3rd ballot, I think, and he said the opposition wasn't wavering. So I don't know. Is he trying to set the McCarthy record? I mean,
no. My understanding is that Jim Jordan is saying, okay, this is stupid, and he's going to wait till January for the 3rd ballot. In January, he'll say maybe tempers will have cooled a little bit, and we'll be able to actually appoint a speaker. So what they want to do is interim speaker,
right?
The whip, I guess, who's acting as interim speaker. Now, of course, one guy came out, I saw this, and he actually wants Donald Trump as the interim speaker.
As the interim speaker. Okay.
Yeah. I want him as the speaker just long enough for the State of the Union address.
Oh, hey, that would be
how much fun would Trump be behind Biden
sitting
at the State
behind
of the
Biden, and mugging, and putting
wrong?
yeah, right. And then, by the way, that's the only time they'll ever be on the same stage because there's not going to be any debates, right? Between the two of them. All right. Well, that's a great scenario.
It would be delightful. So I'm throwing my support behind Trump just for the State of the Union.
I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you on that one. And that Pelosi joke was really good. So so here's another story. I was intrigued by this that I saw on Twitter. They're saying the best place to get your COVID shot is in your penis. Now,
another reason not to get one.
Well, I was thinking, if your COVID symptoms last more than 4 hours.
Hey, Chris, hey, I don't think you could show that.
Well, it was on Twitter. I mean, I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe you should. But yeah.
Okay, that's right. They're not listening. Well, it's going to be on. It's going to be a. No, we're okay.
I'm waiting for Chris to put a little, sign up here saying that he got my joke. That about the symptoms lasting more than 4 hours. Okay. Speaking of biological parts, Wisconsin Democrat David Considine says women losing to biological males should just work harder. I actually said this in Congress. And I say, amen, and that those women should just grow a pair, if you know what I mean. All right, okay. Yeah, it's and I remember this is the same kind of people who would have criticized blacks back in the 60s, not blacks, but racists back in the 60s who said that blacks needed to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. In this case, pull yourself up by your own jockstrap, I guess. Yeah, Would people forget about that euphemism? Is that it's impossible. Exactly.
People think it's like no, just it's like brush the dirt off and walk it off. That's what they think it kind of means, but it doesn't. It means something that's impossible. It's hoisting by your own petard. Have we covered this before?
We have not covered that one, and I'm glad we
hoisted on your own. Hoisted on your own petard.
Right.
A petard is actually French for flatulence.
Well, I thought it was like a shipping term that I didn't understand, like aft.
It's French for flatulence. So what you're saying is that person has actually raised himself by passing gas. It's
aerodynamic.
Puffing,
I get
puffing around the room.
No, that's how the Chinese balloons made it across the United States when they ran out of propane. Then there's a story that I saw this and I said, "Oh wow, that's pretty good." What it's talking about raising yourself by your own bootstraps. Eric Trump was interviewed, and he was saying that when he was 11. Like his dad made him work in construction, and he made only minimum wage at that time when he was 11. And I'm thinking to myself, what 11-year-old gets as much as minimum wage for any job? I mean, maybe you get a chore to do around the house for a quarter or 50 cents or something. But I mean, to get minimum wage when you're 11 years old, that was already a great job.
You get 75 cents a week for taking out the garbage or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an illustration of white privilege there, getting minimum wage when you're 11.
I think a construction job at 11 is an example of illegal child labor.
Sure. I agree.
If I'm not mistaken.
No, I totally understand that. But
he wasn't even. You see, and that's why Trump wanted to stop the illegal immigration. Because all that child labor that's coming over the border.
Right.
It's putting sons out of work.
Oh yeah, no, I saw something selfish in what he had to say. By the way, I mean, I still don't have any problem with what he said. His initial response was about Israel, as narcissistic as it was, and it was all this horrible attack was all about him and how he had warned Netanyahu, and Netanyahu didn't believe that the election was stolen, so it's all about him. But here's the thing, Biden can mouth all the right words, but Trump's the one who moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Trump's the one that cracked down on sanctions to Iran. So I don't really care about the
Trump got the Abraham. He got the Abraham Accord signed.
No,
and I guarantee that there would have been more accords signed if those ballot boxes hadn't been stuffed. Guarantee you that. And Biden actually compared what happened in I just saw this, compared what happened in Israel as his son being killed in Iraq again. He's pulling up that lie again.
It's okay. Look, unfortunately, I'm just happy that Fetterman is in favor of Israel. I'm happy that Sarah Silverman is. I'm happy that the glass is 5% full and not 90% empty. I'm just wondering how long this.
It's going to be stamina. It's going to be interesting. It's because Biden's going into fundraising mode, and if he doesn't do the right thing in Israel, he's going to have a hard time getting money from Hollywood.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, because all the Jews run Hollywood. Yeah, I get that. No, it is interesting what's happening on the campuses where you've got these donors like to Harvard, $2.5 million they're taking away, which is nothing because Harvard has an endowment of $53 billion, but it's a signal. And I mean, it's happened at Penn. It's happened at other places. Of course, that I've never given to my old school, Northwestern, because I thought that they should have paid me because I was semi-famous. And now I've got a legitimate excuse not to give. Everything like that. But I think we are the canaries in the mine shaft. And it just shows. So anyway, was that something that said that Ken Griffin just donated money to Harvard? When did he do that? Well, that wasn't recent, was it?
April 11th.
Oh, he's pulling it. Ken Griffin is pulling it. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
All right, Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap.
It is with a heavy heart that I say you have an announcement to make right now.
I do. I've watched people do this before, and there's no formula for this. I'm going to retire at the end of February after a marvelous 45 years at this incredible television station and at your side. I'm going on 72, or I will be in February. And let me tell you something. We all get to the point where you have to make a decision. Is it time to retire?
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. Yeah, Tom Skilling is retiring.
He's a Chicago institution. He's right up there with Harry Carey. And
yeah, well, I was wondering, he's certainly, Channel 9 icon. And, I believe they buried Bozo's ashes in bucket number 6 from the grand prize game, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm wondering if Tom is worth being in number 5. And they might have put Fraser Thomas in there. I'm not really sure. Somebody said no one will equal his record. I mean, he's on Chicago TV for like 39 years or something. Well, yeah, no one will equal his record because local TV won't even be around that much longer. Forget about it. But here's the thing. I really feel bad because
it's like saying no one will do a muscular dystrophy telethon ever again.
Right. No one, but he quit right when global warming is going to get interesting. And, he's going to miss all the good stuff. Robert Feeder, the late the TV radio columnist in Chicago, did resurrect himself to tweet that Tom was the greatest of all time. And I was greater than Shakespeare. He was a local yokel guy who stuck his thumb out, or to see which way the wind was blowing. But you know what? He was actually very nice to me. I would sub on WGN radio from time to time. This is about 14 years ago, and he was nice to me, which is more than I can say about myself because I'm a notorious backstabber. Well, look at me right now. I think that I think we should, in honor of time, we should shut off our smartphone weather apps in a moment of silence, just for 5 or 10 seconds. I mean, the guy was, and he lost a ton of weight a couple of years ago, and now I'm thinking he did all that for nothing, because he's not even going to be on TV anymore. Before he used to stand pointing to the map of Illinois, but he would cover up Iowa as well. And now, then he lost the weight, and you could actually see Chicago. But I was thinking, they should probably stuff him and put him in the Museum of Broadcast Communications. However, I don't think we have a local edition of the Museum of Broadcast Communications anymore. We don't have a site for that. I think they lost their lease or something. But he should be in a big local museum. I was thinking the Museum of Science and Industry, perhaps they could put him like in one of the U505 bunks. And it's just a thought of how to honor him improperly.
Or they could get one of those animatronic things that they're not using at Chuck E. Cheese's anymore, and actually have a weather exhibit at the Science and Industry.
How about that? Tom Skilling? Wonderful. Yeah. It's that's a harbinger that local yokel TV news is on its way out, and good riddance, of course, because they don't want me anymore.
Well, the thing is, there's no more local news. I mean, you watch the national news into the local news, and it's the same stories repeated. I mean, nobody.
Don't they have still put out like the Englewood murder du jour on the local news?
Well, yeah, that's the way it is. It'll always start as 5 more shot in Chicago, but first, the House is yet to nominate a speaker. So
they will put that on the local news. That seems like a waste of time.
It does, and it is. So
because I used when I was my short-lived stint at Channel 5. So we would do the local news at 5, and then 5:30 you'd have the NBC nightly news, and then we come back at 6. So at 5:30, I would walk outside. We had it was called Studio 5, was right on Michigan Avenue and Pioneer Court there, and I'd walk outside. I may have said this before, and there's a statue of Jack Brickhouse there, the famous Chicago sportscaster, and I would stand next to that statue while the tourists were walking by, and I'd still be in my suit and makeup because I had to do another sportscast in the half hour after that. And as they were walking by taking photos of Jack Brickhouse, I would say, well, would you like to take a photo of a living sportscaster? I would
and they go, who is one here?
Well, then they'd ask me they'd give me their cameras, and I would take pictures of them with Jack Brickhouse. So speaking of sports,
hey, did you ever ask because I could kind of see that would be a great moment in I think they did that in The Simpsons, where Bart went and talked with the pioneer. Spring talking to see you out there talking to Jack Brickhouse. I said, well, Jack, I goofed today. I misread the teleprompter twice.
Yeah, right. Well, I once, because I used to be on with Jonathan Brandmeier in the mornings, and he would have me on to like sabotage all the interviews. I would be the backstabber that I mentioned to you before, that quality of my character. But he once had Jack Brickhouse. He had me on, and he said, and he knew that I did this. He said, Bruce, why don't you do your imitation of Jack Brickhouse having sex? And I obliged and said, back she goes, back, hey, wee, I need a cigarette. And then he goes, and now here's Jack Brickhouse. And he was on the phone and he heard the whole thing. And so I was humiliated, but he was cool about it. I mean, he didn't applaud me, but he didn't hang up either. So, Jack Brickhouse, one of my heroes. Speaking of sports, did you see that Lexi Thompson, female golfer, almost made the cut in a men's tour? They invited her in this men's tour event last weekend, and she shot a 69 and almost made the cut. Yeah, hi. So I'm just wondering, this would be a good sports debate, which I'm sure you're not interested in, but I'm wondering if current Lexi Thompson could beat one of the great golfers of all time, Ben Hogan. I mean, there are metrics. She's got to be able to hit the ball farther than Hogan could. Could she beat Ben Hogan? I mean, that would make, if you could I'm sure they've simulated.
Well, what is it? Is she doing better because the technology's improved?
Technology's also, but women are improving. Athletes are improving. Athletes get better. I mean, other things don't necessarily. Like I mentioned Shakespeare before. I don't think we got anything to. Tommy Skilling, much as I liked him, did not rival Shakespeare. But athletes are always getting. They're just getting bigger and stronger. So
they're able to focus more on the proper muscles. They're allowed to.
They're just
they can use video. They can use video to work on their swing.
Look, the average Civil War soldier was like 5'3". I could have won the Battle of Gettysburg. You and me at our age could have won the Battle of Gettysburg. I mean, there were like munchkins that they're out there. These little guys who had typhus. I mean, as long as we had our shots.
Oh yeah, they had mounted.
There was COVID shot in the penis, and we got out there and brandished our musket, and that's not a euphemism. And we got out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that the better nutrition. Do you know that one of the great selling points, not that it was a selling point because they were conscripted, but when you got all these farm boys into the army in World War II, they love that they got a healthy breakfast. They got cornflakes or oatmeal or gruel. Please, sir, can I have some more? I first get into that boat and storm Normandy, Omaha Beach. That's farm boys. I don't think farm boys were. I think farm boys were well fed.
Okay, whoever it was, they weren't.
Yeah, I think it's those sweatshop children. I think that's what you're thinking. Right. It's the sweatshop children that love the breakfast.
Fair enough.
My dad was in World War II, and he was a farm boy, and he used to brag about the amount of breakfast that his farm mates would enjoy.
All right.
I read this wrong. Lexi Thompson. When I first just scanned through it, I thought it said Leah Thomas. Strangely.
Oh boy.
Who made the men's golf tournament. No, I seriously did.
Good one, Tim. Good one.
No, it wasn't.
What's the
Which
difference
is kind of
nowadays?
interesting, but she did it right. Okay. She's not pretending to be a man. She's no. She's
a real woman, Lexi Thompson. And she could I'd have to play from the ladies. She played from the tips, I'd play from the ladies' tees if I ever faced her. The Bears lost. It was a tough game. I don't know if you saw it, probably didn't. Really great game. They were 1-4. The Vikings were 1-4. The Vikings were out there were without their best player, Justin Jefferson. The Bears were without their third best player in history, Dick Butkus. So the Bears lost, and now everybody's and Justin Fields is injured. So looking forward to this Sunday's game. Tell you one thing though. I think Justin Fields is a better fumbler than this Tyson Bagent. You don't know how crazy people get about this stuff. I mean, people on Twitter. I mean, it's the vehemence, the emotion, the volume of criticism. I mean, next to the Israeli Hamas war, it's the biggest thing in Chicago. It may be bigger even in Chicago. So there you go. We should close on a funny note here. Did you see this Uranus Fudge Factory tweet? The best fudge comes from Uranus. Check out all 16 fudge and awesome flavors that are popping out of the Uranus Fudge Factory right now. So sure. I tweeted in response to that the Uranus Corporation joke was funny in the Groove Tube movie in 1974, and it's funny now. Uranus Fudge Factory tweeted me back and said they have to look that up because they weren't aware of that. No, you think you originated that? I mean, are you serious? I mean,
well, I still remember when we had a probe. If you remember that, we set up a probe in the 70s, and I think it took like 20 years to get there. Yeah. And as the probe approached the planet,
of course,
Dan Rather started calling it Uranus.
There you sure?
Do you remember that? Because he didn't want to say, well, rings have been discovered around Uranus.
Right,
he didn't,
sure.
So the pronunciation.
You know, and in those days, you're talking about, you know, pre-Obergefell decision. A lot of people weren't in favor of probing Uranus. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.